You're standing on a bridge so high it shouldn't exist, 625 meters above the ground, nearly twice the height of the Eiffel Tower, in a place where mountains once made travel nearly impossible. This is China's Huzhang Canyon Bridge, now the highest bridge deck on Earth. For decades, crossing this canyon took over an hour of white-knuckle cliff roads and endless danger. Now it's one smooth minute. An entire region's fate changed overnight. How did engineers build a bridge where no bridge should stand? The answer reveals more than just gravity-defying steel. Guizhou's mountains do not forgive mistakes. Here, the land rises and falls in sharp, unpredictable folds. 92% of the province is mountains or high plateau, split by canyons so deep that sunlight vanishes by mid-afternoon. For generations, a journey across the Huajiang Canyon was a test of nerve and patience. The only route meant clinging to the edge of the gorge, following a road that twisted back on itself in a series of endless switchbacks. Each turn brought the risk of falling rock or a sudden landslide. In the rainy season, mudslides could sweep away entire stretches of road, leaving travelers stranded for days. Some villages sat within sight of each other, but a direct path was out of the question. Every errand, every delivery, every emergency meant a 70-minute detour carved into the mountainside. The old road was narrow, barely wide enough for two vehicles to pass. Drivers learned to honk before every blind curve. Guardrails, when they existed, were little comfort against the sheer drop below. In fog, headlights only illuminated the next few meters, and stories spread of trucks vanishing over the edge in the night. For farmers and traders, getting goods to market meant leaving before dawn and returning long after dark, bracing for the possibility that a single rockfall could block the road for hours. In medical emergencies, families could only hope the weather would hold and the road would stay open long enough to reach help. Children in these villages grew up watching their parents navigate rope bridges and cliff trails, knowing that school was a distant place, sometimes reachable only by footpaths that wound for hours through the hills. The Bayan River at the bottom of the canyon was a lifeline and a barrier, a reminder that the shortest distance between 2 points was often the most dangerous. Even basic services, hospitals, markets, government offices, were separated by natural obstacles that shaped every part of daily life. Isolation wasn't just a feeling, it was a fact measured in hours lost, chances missed, and risks taken every day. The mountains protected and confined, holding communities apart and making every journey a negotiation with the landscape. In Guizhou, the question was never just how far you needed to go, but whether the road would let you return. Before the bridge, the canyon dictated who could travel, who could trade, and who could reach opportunity at all. The arrival of a 1-minute crossing was not just an upgrade, it was a rewriting of what was possible. A single number tells the story: 625 meters. That's how far the bridge deck hangs above the canyon floor, higher than Shanghai Tower, almost twice the height of the Eiffel Tower. No other bridge on Earth puts travelers so far above open air. The total length, nearly 2,890 meters, stretches across the void like a drawn bowstring. For perspective, that's almost 3 kilometers from end to end, long enough to swallow entire city blocks or runways whole. The main span, at 1,420 meters, outdistances icons like the Humber Bridge and rivals the world's greatest suspension crossings, but in terrain far less forgiving. The scale of steel alone defies belief. Nearly 49,000 tons went into the structure, enough to build 2 Eiffel Towers from the ground up, then still have steel left over. More than 21,000 tons of that weight is concentrated in the truss segments, each one purpose-built to lock into place high above the canyon. Every bolt, every weld, every meter of cable had to meet standards set not just by gravity, but by the threat of wind, rain, and earthquakes. These are not just numbers, they are the raw material of a project that pushed engineering to its limits. The budget tells its own story: $150 million. In the world of mega infrastructure, that's a sum that buys more than concrete and steel. It buys time, expertise, and the willingness to attempt what most would call impossible. For a region that once measured distance in lost hours and missed chances, this investment is a statement of intent. No shortcuts, no compromises, just the conviction that the mountains would no longer decide who could cross and who could not. Each figure is a record in its own right. Highest deck, longest span in mountains, one of the tallest towers ever built. But together, they add up to something more. A bridge that sets new global standards, not just for height or length, but for what a single structure can mean to an entire region. The numbers are not just statistics. They are the answer to a challenge that stood for generations, now met with steel, concrete, and the determination to connect what once seemed forever divided. No ordinary bridge could survive in the heart of Guizhou's canyon country. The land beneath the Guizhou Canyon Bridge is a labyrinth of fractured limestone, hidden caves, and underground rivers, a landscape shaped by eons of water carving through rock. Every meter of ground hides uncertainty. Core samples brought up more questions than answers. Pockets of empty air where stone should be, seams of clay that shift with the seasons, and water flowing fast enough to carve new tunnels in a single wet year. Building anything permanent here meant fighting the ground itself. The design team faced a choice. Try to plant pillars in the middle of this chaos, or leap the entire canyon in one uninterrupted span. The main chasm stretches 1,420 meters from rim to rim, too wide for any conventional support. Engineers mapped the fault lines and found nothing but instability where a central pier would need to stand. Karst voids ran deep beneath the surface, threatening to swallow concrete and steel alike. Even the most advanced piling rigs couldn't guarantee a secure footing in such unpredictable earth. Seismic surveys revealed the land was restless, with old faults ready to move again if disturbed. Any attempt to anchor a pillar in the gorge would risk collapse, not just now, but for generations to come. The only answer was a suspension bridge, one that could vault the canyon in a single, clean sweep, with its weight carried back to the solid ground at each end. But solid is a relative term in Guizhou. To find bedrock strong enough to hold the load, crews drilled down more than 120 meters below the surface, chasing stable limestone through layers of weathered rubble and waterlogged clay. In places, the anchor blocks for the main cables reached depths of 130 meters, deeper than the foundations of most skyscrapers. Each pile is a steel-reinforced column, encased in high-performance concrete and wrapped in waterproof membranes designed to resist not just gravity, but decades of groundwater pressure and the shock of earthquakes. The process was relentless. When borings hit unexpected voids, the crews pumped in grout under pressure, sealing off hidden chambers and binding loose rock together. Every anchor zone was layered with drainage galleries and fiber optic sensors, feeding back data on stress, settlement, and groundwater flow in real time. Change orders became routine as the ground revealed new surprises, requiring deeper piles, wider caissons, or extra reinforcement. The engineering team, led by geotechnical specialists from China Railway Major Bridge Engineering Group, worked hand in hand with local karst experts to adapt on the fly, sometimes revising plans overnight to match what the next day's drilling uncovered. With the foundations locked deep into the mountain, the towers could finally rise. Their role? To hold the main cables that would carry the entire bridge deck, suspended in midair, untouched by the chaos below. The design was not a matter of choice or ambition. It was a necessity, dictated by a landscape that tolerated nothing less than total respect for its hidden dangers. The groundwork set the stage for what would follow. A bridge assembled with millimeter precision, every segment floating above a world that tried at every turn to pull it down. Building a bridge over a 625-meter canyon means every move is an exercise in precision. 93 steel truss segments, over 21,000 tons in total, weighted on the rim, each one prefabricated, inspected, and tagged for its exact place in the structure. Getting them into position was never a matter of brute force. It was choreography, played out above a drop so deep that clouds sometimes drifted beneath the worksite. The world's largest cable crane system stretched from tower to tower, its main cables thicker than a human arm and strong enough to lift a fully loaded passenger jet. Each lift began with a slow, deliberate tensioning of the lines. Operators in climate-controlled cabins watched data feeds from more than 30 HD cameras and a network of IoT sensors. Every segment's weight, position, and angle appeared on their screens in real time, tracked by Beidou satellite navigation. With a tap, two operators could swing a 200-ton segment out over the void, guiding it with millimeter precision as wind gusts swept the canyon. This was a workplace where the difference between routine and disaster was measured in seconds and centimeters. Old-school riggers like Zhang Wei and Huang Rong once hung from ropes to bolt segments together. Now, they worked from behind reinforced glass, using tablet controls to align 36-meter sections as calm as surgeons. Zhang joked that he could place a segment closer to target than he could park his own car. Huang said, "Precision beats muscle. The tech saved lives and built a better bridge." Before each lift, weather stations along the towers and deck monitored wind speed, temperature, and humidity. If a gust threatened stability, the system could halt a segment mid-air, holding it steady while operators waited for conditions to settle. Sometimes, a truss would hang above the canyon for minutes, swaying gently as the control center recalculated the safest path. The process was relentless. Hoist, align, bolt, weld, and repeat, 93 times, never losing focus. Quality control was constant. Each segment arrived by truck, offloaded at a pre-surveyed pad, and tagged with RFID. Welds were scanned with ultrasound, and every bolt pattern checked against digital blueprints. On site, a full-scale load test put the finished deck to work before a single car crossed. 96 trucks, 3,360 tons in all, rolled out onto the bridge, their weight pushing the structure to its engineered limits. Sensors tracked every flex and shift, confirming that the bridge could handle not just the daily traffic, but the unknowns of wind, rain, and seismic jolts. This was not just assembly. It was a high-wire act played out with steel, satellites, and nerves. The bridge rose, segment by segment, over empty air, each piece locked in place with a confidence born of digital monitoring and human experience. In this canyon, precision was survival, and technology made the impossible routine. Canyon winds have no warning. One moment, the air is still. The next, a steel truss segment weighing nearly 200 tons hangs in sudden turbulence, hundreds of meters above the river. During the final months of assembly, a gust swept through the gorge just as operators prepared to align a critical deck section. The entire lift paused. Sensors along the cableway spiked, and the control center's alarms sounded. Liu Ming, shift supervisor for the night crew, watched the digital readouts flicker red, wind speeds rising, tension climbing on the main hoist. The bridge's remote control system, built for moments like this, locked the segment in place with emergency stabilization clamps. For 17 minutes, everything depended on the team's training and the reliability of their technology. Liu coordinated with 2 remote operators, each stationed in climate-controlled cabins at opposite towers. Every command was precise. Adjust cable tension by millimeters, monitor oscillation, keep the load balanced. IoT sensors fed real-time data into the smart control center, while Beidou satellite guidance mapped the segment's position to within a fraction of a centimeter. A decade ago, this would have meant men in harnesses, clinging to swaying steel, risking their lives in the dark. Now, it was a test of digital nerve. The segment hung suspended, wind gusts battering the cables as operators waited for the readings to drop. When the system finally cleared, the team eased the truss into position without a scratch. No drama, no damage, just 17 minutes of absolute focus. The bridge's safety net had worked. Liu Ming's quiet decisions, backed by a web of sensors and satellite links, had turned a potential disaster into routine. In September 2025, the bridge opened on schedule, its deck unscarred by the canyon's fiercest winds. The lesson was clear. In Guizhou, confidence is measured not in luck, but in preparation and control. Wu Shun remembers when every tea delivery meant a gamble with the mountain. Before the bridge, his trucks crawled through switchbacks, sometimes arriving hours late, sometimes not at all. Now, with the expressway slicing across the canyon, his shipments reach city markets in less than half the time. Export logs from Anlong County show a 63% improvement in delivery speed. Profits for local producers have climbed, some by as much as 40%, thanks to reliable access, even during the rainy season. Wu says, "We can promise fresh tea in any weather. The city trusts us now." For Zhao Dafu, the change runs deeper. As a boy, he watched neighbors tie themselves to hemp ropes to cross the Sky Ladder Trail. We prayed every time. Some friends never made it back. When Zhao drove across the new bridge for the first time, he pulled over and wept. It felt like flying above fear. The transformation isn't only measured in trade or travel times. The bridge brought a wave of visitors, tourists drawn by the glass walkways, the night lights, the promise of standing higher than the clouds. New cafes and guest houses have opened along the route. Local families now host travelers from across China, sharing meals and stories that once seemed trapped by the mountains. Not every change was easy. To anchor the South Tower, 137 households relocated from Bianyang and Hogua. Most accepted compensation and job training, though some still questioned the fairness of the terms. Yet even those who left returned to see the bridge, standing on the rim and pointing out where the old road vanished into mist. For many, the bridge is more than steel and cable. It's proof that the world can finally reach them, and they can reach back. At 625 meters above the canyon floor, the Huzhang Canyon Bridge now holds the record for the world's highest bridge deck, a fact confirmed by official construction documents and global infrastructure registries. The bridge replaced a dangerous 70-minute switchback drive with a 1-minute crossing, transforming daily life for thousands in Guizhou. Engineers overcame fractured rock, extreme winds, and seismic hazards using a 1,420-meter suspension span, anchored by towers over 200 meters tall and nearly 49,000 tons of steel. Real-time monitoring and advanced construction methods set new industry standards. While some construction details, such as full records of the 2018 windstorm incident, remain partially classified, the real-world outcomes are clear. Regional delivery times have dropped by 63%, and some businesses report profits rising by 40%. The bridge stands as documented proof that a natural barrier once shaping generations can be erased by engineering. For Guizhou, the Huzhang Canyon Bridge is not only a record setter, but a turning point written into the land.